Hey guys, Banana Luck here. Welcome back to another Watcher Realms video. So we have the Lyra banner that's upcoming. I've already talked about the hero a few days ago, and today we're just going to be focusing on what are the best choices for you to pair her with in her banner. So in case you guys aren't aware yet, so if we go to the Frostforge Jamboree event here, Lyra is going to be having a special banner when commanders can select a hero, excluding lots, event-exclusive heroes, from the Invocation of Spirits pool to pair with Lyra in the Braid Up pool. So this is huge for many reasons, for many people at different parts of the game. You're going to find some use on this. But first of all, we want to just talk about the newer players who may be seeking after new heroes. Who should you pick? And then after that, we'll move on to the more late game players that, may be chasing certain awakenings. So first of all, how does this work? We go into gallery here. It's basically going to exclude all your lords. Leia, King Haas, Torador, Morrigan, Twin Fin, and then you have Araka here, Venoma, and then other than that, the big contentious point is whether Ajax is considered a lot, because if we can pick him, that's going to be pretty OP. But there's a few things to take note of, even though you can pick Ajax, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But basically, these are the heroes that are excluded from the Lord category. Your next category is going to be your limited heroes. So who are those? Mainly, they are going to be, let's see, right here, Honora, that's going to be excluded. Dahlia, excluded as well. And then from the Nightmare Council, we have quite a few. We have Kigiri, we have Las. This will be excluded because they're limited heroes. And then we have Gwendolyn as well, which they skipped over during Christmas because we're getting Wukong instead. And other than that, I don't think I missed out any more heroes. And I do believe heroes like Kalista will be included as well because they are limited units here. The question would be if units like Celine will be included because she is a fusion unit. I know Crowdor is in the summon pool already, so he's definitely going to be inside, but those are the heroes that are excluded. Now, moving on to the new players. Who do you want to pair your Lyra with? So there's going to be a couple of scenarios. It depends on which part of the game you're stuck at. For some people, it might be as simple as something like a Constance. If let's say you have a poke team, you want a Constance because that complements well, then that fits in. And Lucius as well for the clans. But that's it for the Watcher sections. I don't think any of these heroes are that spectacular. I think Constance, really, if you really have a very solid Arbiter team and you're missing Constance to really complement it, that it may work there. From the North Throne, there's really no units that I want here. Valkyra is pretty common, Nocturne as well, even though I haven't put a single copy of him since my first one. Definitely not Shamir or Sadie or Crowdor or Brokir. So that's what we have. Nightmare Council. This is a very different story. We have a lot of amazing units here. Hatsutt, first copy, gonna do amazing for you. Make gear rate 3 way simpler, and also, be an amazing part of Arena as well as GVG. The other unit is gonna be Arrogance. Especially so if you have Lust but you don't have Arrogance. The other great thing about Arrogance is that if you caught my other videos, you will have seen that I have a lot of Soul Stones of Arrogance that is basically purchased from the Awakening shop. What does that mean? It means that once you snag that first copy of Arrogance, you could essentially just awaken him all the way with the Soul Stones from the shop. And yeah. Other than that, in the Nightmare faction, Twyla could be amazing as well. For Hex BP affiliation, it adds about 5000 BP. And other aspect is also the fact that Twyla does amazing damage in Guild Boss 1 as well as Guild Boss 2. So if you are early game, you have a Hex, you're missing that Twyla, I do think that it can provide you the boost that you need. But that's it for the Nightmare faction. The other units I would not try for. I will not try to put them on the banner. First card, there's only really one unit that we want to take note of here, and that's going to be Vierna. Why? It's going to be because Vierna unlocks Silas's Bond, and if you can see here, on Vierna it doesn't do much, but if we just skip forward a bit to Silas, obtain Vierna, the Wraith Queen, to unlock the following bonus effect. During the effect of Shadow Cloak, Soul Sniping deals 100% extra damage. So Soul Sniping here does 140% damage. I do believe this is 160% at max level. And Vierna just adds a whooping 100%. And Silas is kind of handicapped without it. So that's another one of the... That's the one and only unit that you want to go for. And we're just talking about base copies here. And then over here, the obvious choices are going to be Hex, Zillitu, no one else from the rest of the list. Lord Phineas, going to be a bit debatable. I do think that's more for the whales, and I'll talk more about that later. And then for here, Star Piercers, very straightforward. Hex or Silas. That's with Silas, Hex in the Infernal Blast faction that we mentioned earlier. And then over here in the Esotericist faction, it's gonna be Elowyn as well as Boreas. No one else. So quite a lot of couple of units here, but I would say that the top picks here for most people are gonna be Elowyn because of how versatile she is, the global rage regen, as well as the cleanse that she offers. That's gonna bring you very far in the game. And I think behind that, the other units that I would say are comparable to her are going to be Silas or Vierna, just for the bond unlocks. If you don't have both of the units, I would say don't pick your Lyra banner with either one of them, because Silas Vierna banner is very common. It always reruns. Better off to wait for that instead. I think Elowyn is probably the top pick for most people. Beyond that, it's going to be the other bonds like Hex and Twyla. Either of these units are going to be amazing, and if you can summon multiple copies of them, even better, especially for units like Hex, which has amazing awakenings. Other than that, I'll say that Arrogance is a close match, but if you don't have Blast, it's not going to be that powerful. And then rank behind all of that is going to be your units like Hatsutt. Hatsutt is amazing, don't get me wrong, but she's not going to be that game-changing in terms of all parts of the content compared to something like an Elowyn. And Boreas is another good call-out. He's going to be a mage that you can use to essentially just clear out the entire of Gear Rate 1. But I think at this moment, we have just so many AoE mages in the game, you don't really need Boreas to clear Gear Rate 1 anymore. So I will say that ranking all of this, just to sum it up for you guys, Elowyn is probably the top pick for most. Silas or Vierna is the second. If let's say you don't have either of these units, if you don't have both of them, then don't go for it. Other than that, it's going to be your units like Boreas. Boreas is going to be amazing for early gamers. You're going to clear out so much content. And then you're going to have your other units like Hex, Twyla. If you have either one of them, it's going to unlock so much. Hex by himself does a lot as well, don't get me wrong. But Hex also falls a bit more with the late game folks who want to chase his awakenings. And Zillitu as well, which is Guild Boss 1 damage. But other than that, I would say that Hatsutt comes next. And then there's pretty much no one else on the list here that I would really hard recommend. Lucius maybe, Constance maybe if you have a Pope team, but I don't think these are crazy units unless your account really needs them. I do think that Elowyn, Silas or Vierna are the top choices. If any of those other units fall behind, then I'll think that you're better off chasing Awakenings. So that's for your early gamers. Next group of folks, these are going to be your late gamers. You will be chasing Awakenings most probably, so let's take a look at some of the best Awakenings in the game. First of all, I'm going to zoom in at Boreas, because this guy, if you guys were around last Christmas, you will know what a menace he was when he was first launched, especially in AoE arena where Ingrid didn't exist. Boreas was Ingrid, but even worse. Like there's no way that you can compare Boreas and Ingrid, because Boreas was launched at a time in arena where if you kill the mobs on the opposing team, all the other enemies mobs die straight away, but deals damage to the enemy's tower based on how many mobs they have left. So Boreas instant wipes everything. And yeah, the game was basically a pain in the ass to play with. No one really liked arena. And he has amazing awakenings. A1, during the ultimate, trigger chance of the hero's talent increased by 40%. His talent basically is 10% freeze. So during the ultimate at A1, the freeze becomes 50%, which is very clutch because he does extra damage based on freeze. A2, flat 5% base attack, always nice. A3, what this does basically, it brings Boreas back to the pre-nerf days. So A3 Boreas currently is gonna be the base Boreas pre-nerf. And that's gonna be slightly scary in GVG. Arena, not so much. Until real-time arena comes, we won't know if Esoterisis faction can shine again. But I would say that Boreas A3 is really mostly just for GVG. A4, Rage Regen, this gives him higher ultimate uptime. And then A5, this is the disgusting one. Ultimate duration plus 10 seconds. Increases his damage output significantly. Not only that, it also causes enemies to, mistime their Demon Soldier deployments if, let's say, they didn't prepare for A5 Boreas. So I would say that Boreas is actually all the way up there at top in my list because of how OP he is. And there's really no units at the moment that benefit more from the awakenings like he does for GVG content. And yeah, that's Boreas for you. Next one we're going to talk about is going to be Ajax. So I did mention that I want to talk about Ajax earlier, but I missed the chance to do so. So let's talk about him now. We're not sure whether Ajax will be included in this. So it says in the banner that it exclude lots and time limited units, but we don't know how they're going to treat Ajax. In the past, we know that Ajax was always treated as a lot because he comes for lot PD in ancient summons, and when you pull an Ajax or Emerald, your PD gets reset. But in recent times, with the introduction of Unpolished Soul Stones, we realized that we can use Unpolished Soul Stones on Ajax as well. So the big question is whether Ajax is going to get the same treatment as per Ancient Summons, or is he going to get the same treatment as per Unpolished Soul Stones? So we won't know that unless the game clarifies that or until the banner actually goes live. The next thing to consider is that Ajax has a lot rarity drop rate. So even if we pair him with Lyra in the same banner, the big problem is going to be the fact that Ajax has a 0.04% drop rate compared to Lyra at 0.46%. This is why I think that it's pretty unlikely that Ajax is going to be selectable on this banner, because I don't see any way that it can balance out the rate such that we don't wind up getting 9 Lyras and 1 Ajax, and that's going to be an absolute waste of pick your banner moment. So that's my take. But if we do somehow are able to pick Ajax, he's going to be the next best unit compared to Boreas. In fact, I'll say that Boreas is actually not as good as Ajax because he's A3. 10% chance increase of the trigger chance for Thunder Strike. This makes him such a menace in GVG as well as AoE and anti-air arena. So that's probably gonna be one of the top picks for most whales out there if we somehow manage to pick Ajax and they somehow manage to balance out the rates. So that's the second unit. Going on to the rest, we're gonna have your usual piercers. So who are those? Hex, Silas, both of these dudes have amazing awakenings. For Hex, I would say that the biggest awakening is actually A3. When there are 2 marksmen on the field, increases damage of Silas and then 1 marksman by 15%. This is huge. A5 as well. Overall, it's going to bring up the damage of your teams because the Eye of the Curse Mark is going to increase physical damage to the target by 15%. So all physical damage that the unit will actually have a 15% damage increase. So yeah, other than that, it's going to be Hex. Hex has Amazing Awakenings through and through. A1, that's gonna give him the chance to draw the Fool, which basically does 100% damage more, or rather 300% more, because yeah, this deals 400% damage 3 times, and then this one does 500% damage 3 times, and also the fact that there's a slow on the Fool instead. And then A3, this is another huge one. Basically extends his ultimate duration by 30 seconds, which is amazing. And then A5 reduces the amount of card draws he needs, and all the cards that he draws during his ultimate has a 30% damage increase. So Hex has Amazing Awakenings through and through, but the problem is that he's only really being used in one area of the game, and that's Guild Wars 1. So that's the caveat I want to put out. I do have A4 Hex, but I don't think I will put Hex on the banner because I literally only need one copy of him. I'll just try my luck and wait for him to come home eventually. Whereas on the other hand, Silas, a lot more versatile. I can use him in Arena, can use him in GVG in some teams as well. So yeah, I'll say that there's also Samra. I'll say that the A3 and A5 Silas are actually pretty nice to chase after, but same situation here. I have Silas at A4, so doesn't look like a good banner for me to, you know, pick Silas on. And yeah, that's the piercers. Infernal Blast, I would say that for some players, picking Phineas might be decent, just for all the damage that he dishes out. So I would say that especially so in the Boreas Codex, Phineas actually works amazing there if you have a full Soulcadence team. So it's gonna be very specific that Phineas is gonna be amazing for the Boreas Codex. I do think that some wheels might actually chase after him because after all they might already have most of the other units at A5. So Phineas is gonna be the next best option for them. Other than that, some folks might want to chase after Zilitu's A3 as well, which gives her ultimate 10-second extra duration, and this pretty much brings her almost to 100% ultimate uptime in terms of Guild Wars 1 applications. And then we have Curse Cult, literally 0 units that you want here to put on the banner for Awakenings because, yeah, they're not going to be that special. And then over here, the next unit is probably going to be Arrogance, but Arrogance basically has Awakenings that are great from A2 and onwards. A2 is crit damage, A3 is extra damage to burning targets, A4 is rage regen per attack, and A5 is that whopping 100% extra damage for the first 5 attacks. Problem here is that Lust and Arrogance have always been on the same banner. So if they do a rerun, if you have Arrogance at A5 already, you might miss out a bit because you don't want to put Arrogance on that. So I'll say that Arrogance Awakenings are great, but they're not going to be that essential. I did get to Samra 120k with Arrogance pre-Samra nerf. So that's the thing to consider. Another thing to consider is that Arrogance has a Soulstone in the shop, so yeah, do you really need to put him on the banner? That's going to be the question. And the next unit I'll say that is decent is going to be Twyla. Twyla has Awakenings are a bit counterintuitive. So A3 increases her ultimate duration, but if you guys know, when in this game, when you cast your ultimates, you don't actually gain rage until the ultimate ends. And then she has this part of a kit over here. Trigger chance of deranged play is increased by 5% each time when the ultimate is cast. So this tells you that she wants to cast her ultimates as much as possible. Extra ultimate duration kind of goes against that. And then her other passive, 10% defense penetration for every ultimate that she does. So you want 8 ultimates to get her to full speed. And A3 again sort of ruins that, but I know some people that missed out on Twyla, so maybe they will want to go on her just for these instances, but I would say that the A3, not really worth it. I mean, A4 is nice penetration, but this hero already has 80%. I don't think you need to go for more than that. And then A5, I heard that the damage increase here is only for 6 seconds. Pretty bad, so yeah, I don't think for the late gamers you really want to go for this unless you want to chase Twyla's first copy. And then you have Hatsutt. We just recently had a banner, so I don't think most folks will want to chase after this, but she does have very good awakenings from A2 onwards. A2, A4, and then A5 specifically, but A3 is garbage, A1 is actually half decent. Other than that, no other units that you really want to go for, unless you're a crazy GVG fanatic and you want to get broke here. Other than that, I'll say that the top tier units that are to go for sorry, forgot about Watch Guard as well. Late gamers, maybe Lucius, but I think Kikuri is a way better pick here in terms of cleansing units, so I'll just skip this entirely. So for late gamers, I'm just going to sum it up again. If the game allows for Ajax and they somehow balance the rates, he's going to be the best unit for you to pair with Lyra. Second best unit, that's going to be Boreas in my opinion, because he has amazing awakenings through and through. Every single awakening just does out more dishes out more damage. And then you're going to have Hex and Silas. This one follows behind. A3 Silas, A5 Silas, those are the good ones to chase for. Hex, any awakening is great, so might as well A5 him, but caveat here is that you can only pretty much use him in Guild Wars 1 and sometimes in Guild Wars 2. And then for the Infernos, this is actually going in priority, surprisingly. Zillitu A3, Phineas, if let's say you want to chase Boreas Codex. Setram as well, maybe if you want to chase his awakenings for BP. And no one for the Curse Cult faction. For Nightmare faction, that's going to be Twyla if you're missing your first ever copy. And then you also have Arrogance, but bear in mind that he has his Soulstone, and also potentially a last Arrogance rerun banner. And then notable mention is also Hatsutt, but we just have a banner. And then no one from the Northern faction, no one for the Watchguard faction as well. Honestly, I would think that for the late gamers, you're probably going to be chasing a certain awakening that you're missing. It's not going to be really hero specific, but more of who you have not put. Like, it's not going to be to complete some part of the game. It's probably going to be to get the A5, the unit that you've been chasing after that you've just not managed to get. Another notable mention is actually Elowyn's A3. This dispel basically allows you to run Samra beyond 120k in a much easier fashion. Problem is that Elowyn also has a Soulstone in the shop. That's why I didn't mention her. But if you want to chase the A3 just to push Samra scores, then be my guest. But other than that, Silas and Hex comes close. The rest of the units are really going to be dependent. But I'll say that those are the best units for you. So I hope that sums it up. Pretty long video covering lots of stuff, but I do think that we need to cover it in quite detail, just to talk about the awakenings that are great, and also to talk about what are the power spikes that you want to look out for and which parts of the game that you will benefit from just having those units. Last one, it's going to be for late gamers who want to clear your Nascent banner so they can get something good. For example, you didn't pull for Xena, maybe pull for Xena now in the Lyra pick banner so that you can maybe get a lot that you have been chasing after for a long time. For me, I have Ajax that's missing, Venoma, and then other than that, it's gonna be Xena, and then who else are we missing? Glacius, and yeah, that's about it. So a few heroes. I don't think I'll pick one of these heroes to actually go on the banner because I don't know when the Nascent banner will be. I might actually pull those junk heroes that I didn't want to pull in the first place during the Wukong banner when I actually do pull for Wukong. So yeah, the last thing to consider, the very last thing, is whether you want to pull for Wukong, because these banners are literally back to back from one weekend to another. So using your resources on one is gonna, you know, affect your resources on the other. And ideally, you want to save at least 200 summons for Wukong because he's a limited hero first of all, and you're guaranteed to get him within 200 summons anyways. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Very long one, but if you have any questions, leave it down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like or subscribe to the channel, and I'll make sure to timestamp everything and about all the heroes that I talked through so that, you know, it's easy for you guys to browse through this. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.